One of the most significant announcements in the Union Budget 2017 was giving affordable housing and infrastructure status. And this bonanza was received with much enthusiasm by the real estate sector. Combine this with credit-linked subsidy scheme and increase in carpet area for homes eligible for CLSS, it was amply clear that this government means business when it comes to creating affordable housing stock. Yet as we approach Budget 2018, we find the industry has a new list for the Finance Minister. Today on Urban Reality, we find out how valid are some of these demands. The top on the list is to reduce GST to 6% from the current 12% on under-construction houses, specifically for affordable housing. What's the rationale? Second question industry has been asking, and of course a pertinent one, why have two taxes at all? Should stamp duty not be removed? And finally, why despite all that was done in the last year's union budget, has the private sector participation been so slow in affordable housing? Joining me today on the show are Geetambar Anand, CMD ATS Infrastructure, Neeraj Bansal, Head Real Estate and Construction KPMG, Jakshay Shah, MD Savvy Infrastructure and President of CREDAI, and Ashwini Kumar Huda, Deputy MD India Bulls Housing Finance. My first question to you, Geetambar, big shot in the arm by the government in 2017 to affordable housing. Yet, if I reel out the numbers to you from private sector, launch only 55,000 units under rupees 40 lakhs in this year in top 7 cities. This is actually even below the number of 2016 at 78,000. Why?
So you see, Manisha, in the budget last year, affordable housing was given an infrastructure status. But what has that resulted in? Nothing really, because there's no direction from the RBI to the banks to qualify certain projects as infrastructure because they're doing affordable housing and give them cheaper capital. Nothing of the sort has actually translated into action on ground. Now, till these things don't happen, you will not see private sector being overtly enthusiastic to get into this space. Coming into ATIB, where you get an income tax reduction. Now, limiting the size of the house to 60 square meters is another deterrent, because there are locations where people want bigger houses, at least 90 square meters carpet area. We have asked for at least 120 square meters of carpet area because, you know, it's an aspiration for everybody to buy a bigger house. Number 3, in ATIBA, there's a clause which says you must actually use at least 80% of the FSI available in smaller towns and 90% in bigger towns to avail of the concession under ATIBA. So therefore, in smaller towns, let me tell you, it is not an FSI game. People don't like to live in high-rise apartments where you can do an FSI of even 2.5 or 3. Okay. They would rather go for a horizontal development. These things are limiting, you know, so there has to be a practical approach to these changes that the government brought into the last budget. And let me assure you, these small changes do happen. GST, of course, as you mentioned, is, of course, very, very important. All right, Jakshay, is that the big concern, the fact that it's not translating to any real action at the bank disbursement level to affordable housing, to private sector?
Of course, to add on that, Manisha, to encourage the private developers, we need to have a real startup for the real estate. We are all talking about the startup. There is no startup for real estate in India today for affordable housing. How you able to give a cheaper loan rate for the land purchase? And coming to your point of the Mumbai, are we going to construct a vertical slum by giving a 30 square meter advantages to them, to the developers? So we have to think. So we are creating an ecosystem, but we are forgetting to how exactly the grooming this industry wants now, because we have a triple whammy effect in this year 2017. Most of the industry had only one, the GST, and everybody else, they are so, I think, hurt by that. But we had GST demonetization and, of course, the RERA.
Okay, I get that. So you're saying that the attention is simply not there, the policy is there in a big way, but the 30 to 60 square meter carpet area, which actually defines the real affordable housing, is not linked to the CLSS carpet area, which of course for middle income group has been increased, but for economically weaker and LIG still remains as 30 to 60 square meters. Now, if I just, Neeraj, I'm going to come to you. If I just look at that overall 40 lakh figure, I know that most private developers are only being able to launch houses at a pricing unit of 25 to 40 lakh rupees. But if I see that segment, the absorption has been quite phenomenal. I mean, 73,000 units were absorbed in 2017, so there were actually more numbers which were bought than they were launched, and 80,000 in 2016. So despite this pent-up demand, and everyone knows the game is really big, 60,000 crores is the number which is being flashed around, we are not being able to get it right, and we're leaving it to the government to just make all these homes, which is never going to be enough.
True. If you look at the top 4 cities in terms of the availability of homes under 30 lakhs, under 40 lakhs, so that, in terms of unsold inventory, that's the lowest number. So we've got 8 to 10% of the total inventory, which is in this bracket of under 30 to 40 lakh kind of a bracket over there. So there, of course, there is demand, and then of course, supply has been very limited as well in that. Clearly, I think it's already been said on the program. If you see that awareness is a big challenge. So from a demand point of view, while there is a demand, but with RERA coming in board, new project launches are not feasible, and the projects which are ongoing also had to make a lot of shifts and challenges around it. So the industry was actually into a kind of a rebuild mode, and also in a mode to kind of reflect and say how we kind of deal with the existing projects more. And it has taken a huge amount of time, with government changes and clarifications coming out around it. So clearly, from our new launches in this segment as well, we've had challenges around that. Overall, in the real estate sector also, the launches have been much lower than what it was in the last year. But if you look at the absorption, while absorption figures are lower, but overall 1.6 million, let's say, houses got absorbed, 160,000 in that, compared to 1.1, right, which was basically launched around it.
Okay.
So yeah, so I think the main thing is to say that to boost this affordable housing supply, how the entire ecosystem has to come together, and from an awareness point of view, whatever incentives your government is giving, are they really understood by the consumer?
By the buyer or the consumer. All right. Here's my question. Through the year, Geetambar, the government has been trying very hard to get private sector come in and build more affordable homes. And when I'm talking affordable homes here, I'm talking about 40 lakhs and below. In fact, the real affordable homes would be below 25 lakhs. So you had 6 PPP models, you talked about CLSS, you also talked about taking government land, the DBT model, mixed development, cross-subsidized housing. It seems to me that the government is trying, at least by giving public sector land and doing a PP model, scale that problem of expensive land. Why is CREDAI not coming forward in any of these 6 models? What is the issue here?
So effectively, Manisha, there is, you see, it's just been announced, so it takes time. We are coming with a legacy here, and there's a lot of baggage that real estate has. Now, for us to actually get the show on the road and partner with government, because government has the right intent, but getting this going is another exercise altogether.
Okay.
So they have these policies.
But these 6 PPP models are exciting enough for you?
They are, but government land, doing a JV on a government land, it is still, there's no concrete form to it yet. There is government land, there are takers. Now, how are they going to auction it to the private sector? So we've been giving proposals to the government. This is how you can do it in a very transparent manner, wherein you get affordable housing, you get EWS, LIG in the same vicinity. But these have to be, it hasn't taken off yet, really.
It hasn't taken off. So it's got announced, but it hasn't taken off. Mr. Ashwini Kumar Hooda, my question to you is that, with that big bang announcement in 2017 budget, just seemed a dream budget for affordable housing. Yet when I look at private sector's participation in launching housing units which are below 40 lakhs, they're pretty much a fraction. I mean, the total launch is 55,000 units compared to what even the government has sanctioned under PMAY, which is over 37 lakhs. So what do you think, as a leading home finance company, where is the issue here?
So from a housing finance perspective, the subsidy is not able to reach a lot of people who are buying these houses on the peripheral areas of large metros, because they are already owning a house somewhere in the country in their hometown, which is a Pakka house. So, while government has been kind to increase the size of the apartment from 90 square meter to 110 square meter and from 110 to 150 square meter for upper mid-income housing, what they need to really look at is you know, if somebody has migrated to a large metros where most of the people find jobs today, then why should they be not getting the benefit of the subsidy because they own a house in their small town back home? It may be ancestral property or something. So that, I think, is something like 50-60% of the demand which does not get this targeted subsidy, and we would expect government to look into this issue closely and then you know, get it out of the way so more demand can be generated. On the supply side, I think it takes time. Let's admit that the whole new subsidy scheme got notified somewhere in March and April, so we are only 9 months into this. Real estate proposals have a long gestation period, and identifying the land, getting into land transaction, these are very thin margin business on the affordable housing segment. And while the corporate tax has been done away with, which makes them even with lower margins very appealing to a lot of large developers, but it still takes time. So I am hopeful that as I hear the various developers I talk to which have very large plans to enter into affordable housing, so I am not really in the camp that believes that we are behind the curve. We would see in this calendar year and substantially more in next calendar year a huge supply of these affordable housing.
Okay.
Yes, as you know, other people have mentioned that there is a scope for PPP to you know, unlock a lot of land parcel, and that's more relevant from a perspective that Indian cities still do not have a concept of affordable housing in heart of the city.
Right.
So whatever affordable housing is happening is on the peripheral areas of the city. So there is, if government can unlock city-centric land with government or with public sector undertakings, then you know, land development
land
for
becomes
affordable
available.
housing can develop in the city.
I think you've really put a context to this whole discussion, and this entire thing of the fact that CLSS or the subsidy is only available to the first-time home buyer, and the migrant population would have at least some ancestral property, is something that probably the union budget needs to take a very close look at. Because if I look at the figures, interest subsidy which has been given so far is only 1,646 crores. I mean, that's really not enough. We'll come back. There are two big other issues to discuss, which is GST, bringing GST down from 12% to 6%, at least for affordable housing, if not for the entire sector, and also doing away with stamp duty. Now, will anyone bell that cat in this budget? Stay with us.